Well, I am Amelia from Aviary Broom Company in Knoxville,
Okay.
Tennessee, and these are handmade traditional Appalachian brooms. Um, they have different uses. Brooms have been used forever, but so let's start with this one. So this could be a cake tester. This is used at the top of the plant of the broom corn, and you just snap one off, and then you stick it in your cake or your root vegetables to see if it's done.
And if it comes out with
And if it comes
something
out with
on
something,
it, then it's not ready yet.
yeah. And when I rely a lot on broom stories. So a man came up and asked me if he could take one and said, "Here's a broom story for you. Put these under your dentures, and they're not going to cut you, and they will get out whatever you need." So there's another fun tip about a cake tester. This is just a normal whisk broom. I like these in my car or on furniture because it acts like a lint brush and pulls up cat hair and dog hair, and you don't realize how gross things get until you sweep them, which is
Okay, and
really
you mentioned broom corn, and that is what these are all
yes,
made out of.
yes,
This is a plant
yes.
that do you know if it naturally grows?
It only takes 90 days to grow.
Okay.
So it can really grow anywhere.
Okay.
And you plant it when you plant corn, and then you harvest it when you harvest corn.
Okay.
I've tried to plant it in the off season. It doesn't really work here, but I order mine from a place out of Texas.
Okay.
And they just grow it year round.
Okay. So let's talk about how you kind of got started doing this.
Okay.
And you can talk about the very beginnings and kind of where you got the passion for it too.
I met a broom maker, and you never really think about where brooms are made.
Of course.
And I didn't realize that broom making was sort of circling the drain a bit. There aren't a lot, and you don't hear much about it. If you go to a museum, you're not going to see a broom maker, and it's strange. So I thought that people just didn't make them anymore. We sort of like had gone over like what brooms look like. This is how brooms are made. This is how they learned how to make a broom. And I finally made a broom, and I was using brains and I was using brawn, and I had to use art and I had to use math. And at the end of it, I got to like kind of cut its hair. That's always sort of satisfying. But then I could use it. So it wasn't like art that is subjective.
It felt
brooms
accomplished when you got done.
Yeah, it was nice. And I had taught art for years and years and years, so I know like a little about a lot.
Yeah.
And this wasn't like anything close to it.
And you had told me that you've been doing this for 6 years.
Yes, only 6 years.
And you did an apprenticeship?
I did for 2 years.
For 2 years. Is that a normal time for an apprenticeship, 2 years?
I feel like it is.
Okay.
I think that it was nice to hear when I did meet other broom makers that I wasn't the only one who took an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take classes in folk schools and things like that. The apprenticeship was nice, and about 2 years is around. It gives you enough time to learn about the plants and the trees and the region and what broomsticks are good and what broomsticks aren't, and how the crop's going to grow if something happens. And I know learning in Appalachia, I learned, it was like I got to see behind the Appalachian curtain, You guys let me have a little peek. It was wild. You guys have trees and plants and all these things. It looks like a Dr. Seuss book.
That's beautiful the way you put it, honestly. So let's talk about that a little bit. You're not originally from Appalachia.
I'm not originally from here.
You're from the north, as we would say, a
yes.
Yankee.
Yes.
So did you move to, not to get personal, you don't have to answer this, why did you move down here?
We came here from Flint, Michigan, and it kind of was time for us to move. My mom had moved down here, and it just kind of seemed natural to sort of follow her. If you had told me that I was living here 15 years ago, I probably would have laughed at you, because I came down here once for a wedding in the 90s.
Okay.
That's kind of it.
So, is as advertised, different than you thought?
It's a lot different, you know, the North has a different depiction of the South.
Hmm.
I know that that's a gross generalization, and I apologize, but I really
I
feel
mean,
like we don't know much about the South.
it's the same way with the South. Is we have the same generalizations about the North. You know, not the same ones, but you know what I mean. Equal, mirrored
And what I found
stereotypes
out,
about the
and I
North.
didn't realize this until I started doing this, is when the automotive plants were built in the North, a lot of people from Tennessee came to Detroit and to
Okay,
Flint to work in the plants.
really?
So what I thought was, like, I was real sad that I was going to lose this food in Flint, and then we came down here, and I was like, wait a minute, this is Tennessee food. So
That's
happy.
awesome. That's cool because lots of times, especially Tennessee and East Tennessee, we don't really have, you know, I would say like a classic meal per se, whereas other places do. You know, I mean, you got Low Country, South Carolina, or you got like obviously Louisiana. You know,
Yeah.
very unique food culture there.
Yeah.
But I would say a lot of times, even I sometimes struggle to know what our own cuisine is. So I'm interested that you felt that and found that here is where you were from. That's cool.
It was nice. It was a taste of home, literally.
Really. So, I mean, did did you live in the city or were you in the rural areas or suburbs?
No. I am a city kid,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I have always been a city kid.
Okay.
So that's the other funny thing about this,
Yeah.
because I go to a lot of farms. I go to a lot of. I went to my first anvil shoot this year.
Yes.
It was
At the Museum
it
of
was
Appalachia.
really interesting.
I've never actually been, but I want to go.
You should go.
I know I would like
It's
it.
great. It's exactly.
Yeah, as advertised.
But there's so much to it. Like, you have
Right.
to dig the hole and which anvil you use,
Yeah.
and why they're doing it.
Why do they do that?
To see whose anvil flies the best.
Okay. Nah, sounds about right.
That's pretty
Sounds
much
about
how
right.
you think they'd be blowing anvils up. But it's cool. Like, it's, you know, peeking behind a curtain.
Yeah.
And for a city kid, you know, now we've got to deal with black snakes and ticks.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm in a
those,
lot of fields.
especially with long hair, you know,
Yeah.
it's tough. So let's talk about specifically like everything on this broom.
Yep.
Material wise.
Yes. So this is the plant right here. I apologize, I didn't bring a sample. And it grows facing up. So this is the stalk. It grows facing up, and then this is the tassel. This is the top of it.
Okay.
One sprig, which is this, will grow on a plant. I could be wrong, because I've seen some pictures with two sprigs. We'll just say this grows on the plant. And then right before harvest, you bend it down so it grows flat. If you don't, then it kind of gets sort of wild, and then it goes everywhere. When it is harvested, it's kind of green. You can sort of see it's
Right.
a little bit green
Yeah,
there,
definitely.
and then you can see it getting a little bit darker. The older it gets, not necessarily, it gets maybe a little bit darker than that, like a dark khaki, like maybe close to there. But it's very resilient. It can be held. I'm currently working with some broom corn that's 80 years old that was found in a barn. But it had.
How delicate is it?
It's not bad.
Really?
I mean, it's, you know, I'm not going to go crazy on it, but
Yeah.
it's
Enough to where you can work with
it's
it.
enough where I can work with it. I can't, you know, you can't sweep with it, but it's
Yeah.
it's cool, and it's very short, which is kind of interesting.
And then you had mentioned this earlier to me that this is part of the stock.
So this is part of the stalk. This looks like this. This is actually an uncut stalk, and it's hollow like a reed.
And you'll cut it down the middle.
And I'll cut it down the middle, so it sort of looks like this. And then just to make this, I put it in there and bend it down, and then just braid it. So it looks like it's this really neat thing, and it's really super hard. That was the other thing I liked when I was learning this, is it is literally what it looks like it is. There is nothing fancy.
I do like that about something.
I didn't have to spend
things.
$60,000.
Yeah.
You know.
And then the handle.
So the handle. So this is what we call in the biz a twisty handle. And
Very technical name.
it is a super everything is so technical in this. I mean, Might want to take some notes.
Yeah, I might have to.
This is just a restricted sapling. So a little vine grew around it and it
Oh,
made
wow.
it look like this. When I was probably near the end of my apprenticeship, we had what I call broomstick day. He did not want to call it that. He's a very serious broom maker.
Mm.
Anyway, broomstick day happened and we went around and trained and kind of moved vines near little baby saplings just to see what would happen. It didn't take, of course, because animals and such, but it would have been neat if we had gone back and they had been properly constricted. I'm sure there's a way to do it with. So these are like, it's treasure when you find something like this. And this has the bark off of it. A lot of artisan brooms that you'll find usually aren't treated. They have sticks that look a little bit more like this. And this hasn't been treated at all. I would put wax on it and then tie a broom around it just to give it that kind of super rustic feel.
Do you go out searching for these?
Oh gosh, yes.
So you just have your days where you're just
I go out
hanging out, finding sticks and broom handles.
I have an outdoor saw in my van, and people really don't mess with you if you're walking around with a big old saw.
I think not.
But I get permission everywhere I go, and sometimes I'll get calls about trees that have gone down, and then I can race there before KUB gets there. But this is a crepe myrtle. A lot of my brooms are made of crepe myrtle. I don't know. I have never had a crepe myrtle in my yard in the north, so to me this was pretty neat. It grows really straight, and in some cultures it's considered to bring good luck and peace and harmony to the home. So then that gets into tree meanings,
Yeah, and I'm interested in that. I don't know how much you
know
about that. Or
I know very little. I was raised super Irish, so I was always kind of raised that the trees had different meanings and the different things. And so that was pretty interesting to me. I found when I first started, y'all have a completely different set of rules down here. So I learned real fast about granny witches, and they have a completely different idea.
Really?
Than kind of similar, but there are not tulip poplars in Boston. So I mean, maybe there are again, but I don't know a lot about tulip poplars.
I don't know much either. Is there anything about the trees, whether it's physical attributes or stories, that you've learned while you've done this?
I like so I tie a lot of brooms from sticks that people give me. You really don't realize how many people just have a stick lying around when you're like, hey, I can make a broom out of a stick. I have a stick at my house. Everybody has that one stick.
They picked it up and like,
That's cool. Amazing, So I sort of feed off their stories, where the stick came from, where they were, and that will help me kind of. I mean, I know there's only so many ways to tie a broom, but it'll kind of give me an idea about what the base of the broom is going to look like.
Okay.
Having to do with the story.
Okay. Talking about broom handles, I had saw on your Instagram where let me just get this right. It was a tree that had fallen on like a local white oak that was like one of the oldest trees in the state.
Yeah.
And it's like 1787, I think you said on your Instagram.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me about that experience and what it's like dealing with something that old and like particular and unique.
It was cool. Talk about imposter syndrome. Why are they calling me? Well, I mean, so
why did they call you?
They called me because I guess I'm it. Well, I'm not it. There are other broom makers in the area, but I'm really the only.
But you're at least one that's very active enough to where
super active, yeah.
To where they knew you would be interested.
And it was word of mouth. I know someone who might know someone who knows this person, and so a person got a hold of me who knows another person who knew this person.
Right.
She was just looking for, and they had called in other artisans. A guy came in with a moving mill. What's that called? A standing mill, freestanding mill.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. That's good enough. That's good enough. Freestanding.
So he came in with his mill, Another guy came in with something else, and people were just cutting away the tree. So the tree is going to become the front door of the house and the mantle of the house. And that wasn't the original house that it was. Obviously, the house hadn't been there the whole time. When the Constitution was signed, each governor got 2 oak trees to plant in their states. And so one was on the west side of the state, and the other one was on the east side of the state.
Okay.
I think the oldest one is in Georgia, but I don't know that for a fact. I kind of looked it up, and it's really hard to find information about that.
That seems very niche.
It's super niche, and I asked some forester friends, and even they said, But so I got there, and I was real excited, and I couldn't wait, and I was going to go do this, and I did not have any idea about the importance of the tree. It's not that I wasn't saying this tree is not important, but as I was sort of harvesting from it, people were stopping and they were touching the tree and they were crying and they had all these memories in the tree. And the gentleman that planted the tree, I believe, lived in the house up on the hill, and there had been a tree house in this tree that lasted for generations, really. And so people essentially were coming. A couple people told me stories, but for the most part, I was just trying to harvest and go. It's very hot,
as it is.
But it was really neat, and it was, and it's cool because it's another one of those things where it's a rich part of Knoxville's history that nobody's really talking about, and nobody's really. I mean, I'm sure they're talking about it in certain circles, but it's not like
those circles
football.
seem small.
I would rather talk about a really old tree than football.
I love it. I love people that have different interests. I love it. So tell me how these brooms came over here. You had mentioned earlier 1700s, maybe something like that.
1700s. Ben Franklin came over. He went to France, and a dignitary gave him a hand broom. Each of the tops of these, I guess you can see it here. The tops of these all have hundreds and hundreds of seeds.
Yeah.
This has been
even
processed.
all the way over here
yeah.
too.
And it goes, and these would be filled with hundreds, thousands of seeds. And they gave him one full of seeds and said, take this back home and plant it. This is when it can grow. So the first crop of broom corn was planted in Pennsylvania. And then, so from what I had heard from somebody was that it then moved down to Virginia. And about 20 minutes after I heard that story, I happened to meet a guy who was splitting logs who was from Virginia. And I said, hey, did broom corn come from Virginia? And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. I just went back to where I was.
I love it.
But so it quickly caught on because it's a good hedge crop. You can take from the seed and plant it. It's almost 100% guaranteed.
Just looking at these real quick, do you leave them uneven all the time? Do you cut them sometimes? This is just what you like to do, maybe, or?
So I don't leave them like this.
Okay.
Which I have a few friends who hate that I do that. I cut them straight and whoosh, and that's it. And they all are clean and tight.
Right,
and nice
just like all these.
Yeah.
The big ones you cut like that too.
A lot of people will leave
people as in
and people like this. Other broom makers.
Okay.
I have a friend, and she made me promise that 3 brooms a year I'm not allowed to cut.
Okay.
And it's so funny because that's what people want. I'm like, use them.
So is there a reasoning behind that, why they don't want you to cut them?
I think just they like it looking wild. A lot of people buy them for decoration.
Okay, yeah.
And
I mean, I
rustic.
figured that a lot of people would kind of like not want to use them since they look so good. But I mean,
yeah,
when you cut it off, I mean, you literally, I can't really tell a difference between, one that's, I mean, at least for the shape right here, it looks like just a normal broom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel like with this, you're like, oh man, this is definitely handcrafted. So I didn't know if people did it for who. If they're using, I didn't know if they used the cut ones or
aesthetic.
Okay.
I think some people I know who have purchased these use them on their porch like this, and they say it works great, and it's good for cobwebs and things like that. And a loose broom kicks up less dust.
Really? Which, I mean, putting a broom on your front porch, that's a superstition too for
It
Appalachians.
is, yes, it sure is, which I thought pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It's I guess the ghosts down here have OCD because everything has to do with them counting. They're like vampires.
Vampires count?
Yeah, that's where Countdown Count came from. You're supposed to come around with sunflower seeds. So if you see a vampire, you throw them on the ground and they have to count them.
Oh, okay. I feel like maybe I did hear that.
Same thing with the ghosts, though. They did it
like
recently also on What We Do in the Shadows, and it was pretty funny because they all dropped on the ground and started counting.
We are right here because that's one of my favorite shows, and the movie. I like the movie as well, but yeah, that's one of my favorite shows. So I'm so glad you brought that up, man. That kills me. Gosh, you got me laughing inside my head right now thinking about all that stuff. Let's see what else we got here.
And there's a witch episode with handmade brooms.
Is there? Maybe I don't remember it.
Yep, I believe they're out of somewhere in Canada.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to look back through the catalog and see. I don't think I remember that. Like I said, there's just so many that
there are a lot.
I'm just laughing out loud the whole time. Yeah. So okay. So, you know, when you make these, obviously you care about them deeply.
Yes.
You know, so where do you think your passion and dedication really comes from for these brooms? You know, is it something that happened while you were learning, or is it something that was kind of down deep there inside you? And
I think it was down deep. You know, I've always been an artist. I've always been I was surrounded by creative people, putzers, tinkerers, you know, so I was always near that. I can't weld, so that wasn't ever going to be, and I'm a little bit, when it comes to fire and sparks and such.
We can stay away from sparks, you know.
Fire is bad.
Yeah, uncontrolled it's rough.
So when this, you know, when there's no tech, there's no nothing. I don't have to go buy a $600 machine that presses something, or I can literally, as we're sitting here, I can probably look around for about 15 minutes and find enough things to make a broom. And it hasn't changed since forever. That's wild.
Yeah.
Nothing is like that. And so I thought, what the heck? I mean, I'm just going to do this, and I think it's really neat. And, you know, I guess if you're into something, maybe people will hear how you're into it, and then they'll kind of join in, and we're kind of like Jedis. So when we learn it, we have to pass it on because nobody else knows it.
Absolutely.
And so I offer classes, and other broom makers offer classes. And for a little while, I had an apprentice, but then they got a really nice job and went away. But they were doing real great learning. I mean, we were at the tying part.
Speaking of, you said you use synthetic dyes for these.
I do.
You said you used an oven. Can you
I use a
talk
stove.
about the process a little bit?
So we're in the Bible Belt, so I always say I have to boil the hell out of them.
All right.
Boiling water. That's it. Rit dye.
Wow.
It sucks it right up.
Wow.
And
so it's pretty simple then.
It's pretty simple.
You know.
I mean, if you're, you know, people use indigo and hibiscus and all these beautiful things, and the colors that they get are gorgeous, but it is so much easier to boil water and drop a couple drops of, and Rit has like, they're like alchemists. You can find any color you want,
right?
And they'll tell you the recipes. So
I mean, really cool. Are these some of your favorite colors? Is the purple and the red, or?
No, I dye a huge rainbow batch probably every 4 times a year. And then from the rainbow batch, I go from there. So this one happened to take a bath.
What are these black dots?
Those are, so this was supposed to be a watermelon. I was doing
okay, I see that now.
Series, and
I see that now.
I made a watermelon. I made a pumpkin, pardon me, a couple of years ago. It's stopping and going. And
so are those dots dyed? Or?
Those dots are actually paint.
Yes, love it.
Warhammer paint, if you want to get completely
perfect
into it.
Awesome.
I believe it's, I don't know what it's called.
I was just curious. I mean, it looked like you can't just drop that in and dye that.
No, like that. I wish.
So I was thinking, but now that you said watermelon, 100% see it. I mean, 100%. So I don't hope I didn't make you feel bad or offend you.
No, not at all.
When I asked what it was.
No, it's fun. The whole thing's a journey. I mean, And the fact that you can't see it means that I just need to work a little harder on it, because you should see it. But that's okay. I think people should work for their art. And the other side has nothing.
Maybe I just don't have good eyes. So, okay, so let's talk about doing this in 2023.
Yeah.
What kind of response do you have from people? You know, I don't need you to tell me like how much you're selling, but you know, do people seem very receptive to these things?
Yes.
And does it depend on like your social class any?
No.
I was just curious
yes
if
and no.
maybe some people that had more money, if they wanted it for the decor part of it.
Sure.
You know, if it leaned one way or the other, I guess I was wondering. But yeah,
as a
just the response
person,
about 2023.
Yeah, as a business person, I wish that I could say, this is my demographic, and
Yeah.
this is who I go toward, and this is who wants to see the brooms. You know, they show you that pie of who's interacting with your things, and it's
all over the place.
18 to 87 men and women.
I mean, that's awesome.
I mean, you know, median of, you know, someone can make $5, someone can make $5 million. It's really tough, because I don't need to, but it's sort of fun because now I'm catering to everybody. But how do you cater to everybody? So you've got your traditional, you've got your flowers, you've got your leather, you've got your, you know, twisty brooms, you've got your old brooms. Look at him. That's funny.
I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, you know, the goal as someone who has a traditional craft is to get as many people as possible interested in it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you keep it alive, right?
Yeah, I think so. Know? And that's what I'm trying to do.
Is if you know, even though there's maybe not be a lot of people out there doing it, if the people just know about it and you know, then they can think back on a time where, man, there used to be this awesome broom maker, you know, and she did all these cool brooms. I wonder if people still do that. I mean, that's a way to keep it alive too, right?
And that's usually what happens. People come up and say, oh my gosh, I was in Florida 60 years ago and there was a broom maker and I bought this broom. And then usually they say, can you rebroom it? And I love rebrooming brooms. I sign my name on the bottom of the stick like a contractor puts like a quarter.
Love it, yeah.
And I hope that catches on. So I hope in 50 years when someone rebrooms my broom, they'll put their signature next to mine.
That's cool. I'm just imagining being that person to rebroom it. That would be cool.
I mean, what a neat
to be like, oh, you know, I mean, it immediately humanizes it, you know? I mean, even though we know that a human made it, it humanizes it even to another degree.
And it's hard to feel a human presence these days, I think. And it's hard to think that a human
not a lot of products that we have do have a human presence, you know?
Yeah.
So, let's see. We talked about you go to the farmers market at Market Square all the time, and you go to different festivals around the region.
I do. I go to Celtic festivals. I go to Appalachian festivals. Yeah, and I talk brooms, and I make brooms, and I sell brooms.
Any place you're looking to go, like festival or get together thing, or person you want to meet in the industry, that another broom maker or anything?
Honestly, I don't know I didn't know what I took on. And it has been, every turn has been something that I didn't even think. It's wild. So I don't know. Okay. Because I know nothing.
Yeah.
I know nothing in comparison to sixth generation
broom
makers.
For sure.
So I think the brooms are empowering. And I think instead of me coming from I don't know. They're just really empowering. They're empowering to make. They're empowering to use. People find them. I had this woman. I was at market. Oh my gosh! And I was real worried when I did this, because I am not from here, and I am clearly making Appalachian brooms, and I was.
So you mentioned imposter syndrome.
So I have a little imposter syndrome, and pardon me. I was at the farmer's market, and this big farmer came up and kind of leaned over and said, "What are those?" I said, "They're brooms, sir." And he said, "Can I use them, or are they fancy?" And I said, "You can use them, and they're fancy." And he said, and he kind of looked at him and he looked at everything. And, you know, those guys, they're very quiet. They're very, very, so you have to kind of watch, like, and they're so good at not moving. So he looked at everything.
If they speak, it's important usually.
Oh my gosh, yes. And he said, if I buy one of these and I go try it on my truck, if it doesn't work, can I get my money back? And I said, yes, you can. And I had like, I was nervous instantly because I knew that he was going to be coming back in about 3 minutes, like it was going to break, or like, why would it break? So about 45 minutes had gone by and he hadn't come back yet. So I sort of figured that he wasn't going to come back. And another farm man came up, just as big as the first farm man, and said, there's a fella in the parking lot cleaning his truck with what I think's one of your brooms. You got any more of those? I sold out of every single broom.
No way.
They all bought them for their trucks. It was wild.
Now, was that one of these like hand brooms?
It's one of these. It's a smaller version of this, and they're just little palm brooms.
Yeah, and like you said, really good for like the dash
work great,
and stuff.
Yeah, but you don't think about them because nobody's used them in 40, 50 years. It's really wild.
That's such a good story. I mean, that's just I can't imagine a better story than that, because that's so matter of fact from, you know, someone who is a matter of fact person.
Yeah.
You know, and for them to be like, well, I'm coming to get my money back, and then like you said, having that imposter syndrome, that I'm sure the butterflies, like you said, you had of being like, well, you know, even though like you said, why would it break? But like your brain's thinking, oh, it's gonna break, it's gonna break, it's gonna break. I know it's gonna break. Like, this guy's gonna hate me, you know. But I'm glad that the opposite happened, that they all came and bought your stuff.
It's always usually pretty positive. I mean, people will dart at market and just pick up a broom and say, I would like this. And at first it was pretty shocking. And I thought that like my mom was sending like a ringer in or something, you know, and that was not the case.
Spending her savings on you.
Yeah. People were seeing these brooms and they were wanting them, and they were their broom.
That's too cool.
It's weird how they find people.
I mean, is that how you think you've had most success, is Market Square, or going to different places, or your online presence? I know you have an Etsy store, I think.
I have an Etsy store. It's kind of hard to ride both those horses.
Yeah,
my Etsy
for sure.
store is neglected.
Yeah.
Ish, but first of all, it's really hard to take pictures of brooms.
I wouldn't even know where
to look good.
Yeah, I wouldn't even.
So
like, what do you do? Action shots with them?
I try to. I'll throw them up in the air so it looks like they're flying. At first, my neighbors thought it was pretty funny. Now they're just kind of used to it. I don't know if they're throwing the brooms around. Now, but it's also a good test to see if.
I just thought about this. Does anyone get any witch vibes from your brooms?
So that happens a lot, and I have a sign in my shop that says "Flying Feature Not Included." And I always say that to become a dealership, I'd have to fill out more paperwork than I wanted to, and so the logistics, you have to fly them on
it's
your
too
own.
much paperwork.
Yeah, some. There was more when I started, and I didn't understand that, and I respect everybody's everything, you know.
Of course.
And
I mean, they just look. I mean,
they do look witchy.
I think it's these that are kind of like, I don't know what's the word, flowy and free.
I mean, but whoever sees these? I mean, you never see them unless the witches use them. So
exactly.
They're witches' brooms.
Exactly. So you know, if just someone that has no clue, you know, they see this, they're like, oh, this is a Halloween thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Which is another thing. Is like, do you do special things for Halloween, or you just not that you should? I'm just
really.
I mean,
I don't. You know, a man came up to me a couple of years ago, and I guess he was from someplace. He and his wife were from New York, and he started. I could not have bought what he told me. Like, do this, do this, do this. This is what you do. This is what you need to do. She said, you need to stop working. And he was walking away, and he said, these are just going to sell themselves. And I thought, he's right. I mean, and there's been a little pushback, you know, are these witch brooms? But I mean, they're whatever you want brooms. Heck, you could even bring it to prom, and it could be your date if you wanted to. I always say, whatever you do with your broom is up to you. Yeah. It's not witchcraft, it's capitalism.
I like that. I like that. I mean, I think someone who knows about Appalachia or is in that circle wouldn't mistake it for something like that, because we know that these are what traditional brooms look like.
It's the distinctly I love when Appalachian people,
Right.
not just, oh yeah, I'm from
Yes.
Appalachia, like
Of course.
Appalachian people
Like, yes.
come up with tears in their eyes and they haven't seen brooms like this since they were little and the man down the street made them, or, and it's just so nice that, I wish that feels were money, because
Yeah.
every time someone comes with a broom story from all walks of life, people from different countries come over and tell me their broom
Yeah.
stories, or tell me what broom looks like the broom that they had back home, or their broom maker, what their local
Right.
broom maker did. And it's just, so the pushback can push back. I mean, that's fine.
I mean,
Whatever gets
I
you through the
mean,
night.
do you consider it pushback? I don't necessarily. I mean, I don't know that that's pushback. I
It's
mean,
it's their opinions, and I'm just
everybody's
a
got
broom
them.
maker,
Yeah,
and I
exactly. I
like to
mean,
think I'm
what?
doing a good job.
No, I mean, I think you are. I just love all these designs.
Thank
I
you.
mean, this one looks. This one's just like this.
Yeah.
Like, are they that close when they're grown?
No.
So you
They're this close when they're grown.
okay?
So this is bound. So
you
when
okay?
I actually brought. Do you want me to show you?
Yeah, if you'd like to.
Do you want to see? I mean, if you don't want to see, I'm not going to push
Yeah, I want to see.
brooms on you. I was just about to learn how to make a broom. He said, "Okay, you got to take off your shoes." I thought,
What?
kind of establishment is this? But yeah, it's, and you get all these big old hound toes. So if you're out there thinking about getting into brooming, your toes will act like fingers. Kind of gross. Okay.
Where should I point the camera mainly?
So I'm going to. You can just, if you can do my feet and my hands.
Yeah,
from
that
here
should be
down
perfect.
are really. So let me get
Perfect.
this little string here. Put that there. Okay. So this can be any stick. It just has to roll. I'm just going to tie a basic knot. And then now,
Oh wow.
most of the time when you're doing this, it should be that taut. Just kind of doing this sort of fast so I can show you. Now that sometimes happens.
I was just
That's
about to
the
ask.
only thing. It's because I tied it to another string.
Oh, okay.
That happened to me last June, and I still have a mark on my face.
Oh my gosh.
Because the velocity
Yeah,
of
I bet that comes quick.
it comes quick, and it's one of those things that's like getting hit in the face with a basketball,
Yeah.
where people just think you're starting to get a zit. All right, let's try this again, shall we? All right. So this was how my teacher learned, and he'd go to his grandmother's house and they would help with the garden, and then their big treat was they could make some brooms on the porch.
Okay.
And they'd go find their sticks, and they would make little hand brooms, and she would make the big handled brooms. Making a handled broom is just the same as making a hand broom, except for there's a stick in the middle of it.
Right.
So for this, if I wanted to do the plating I was talking about earlier, I put that in there. And it's an uneven number. I'll just do 7 for showing you purposes.
Okay, now I'm with it.
See how that, and
Yeah.
it wasn't until I saw that, it just looks like it's so involved, and it's really, there's nothing about this that is that involved. And then this is the weaving part. And then this is it. I mean, it's
kind of a repeat process after that.
It's a repeat process all the time. And then tie it off. And again, it's, I mean, you're using the stuff that you, the only time it doesn't open. So then I would just trim there.
Right.
And then that's it. I would
That's awesome.
Bind it and tie it at the bottom for a hand broom. Yeah, and to look at other regions, nothing's really different.
Yeah.
They might tie them differently with something called a treadle, and it's a square almost, and you can wear shoes with that.
No, that's really cool. Like you said, it just looks so involved when you see it perfect looking.
That's the awesome thing about it. It's so not involved.
And then it's almost like when you do it, like obviously you're really good at it, but I feel like a normal person would be like, maybe I could learn how to do that,
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun giving classes and seeing people, and it is pretty easy, but it is kind of involved, and it's fun watching people see that for the first time.
Yeah.
And try it.
All right. So, I mean, I don't want to keep you too long. Is there anything else that you'd like to say or got to say or anything?
I don't know. Do you want to look at my tools?
Yeah.
The only reason why this was just one of the things that I really liked about this craft was not only is the entire plant used, but this is all made from stuff found around farms or homesteads.
Mm-hmm.
Old screwdriver, some leather laying around, and a saw blade.
Oh, wow.
So blacksmiths and broom makers have these relationships, fireplace brooms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And my teacher said, make sure you find a blacksmith. And I didn't know what the heck he was talking about until I realized that the only way to get my tools made is if I knew a blacksmith. So my needle is a wrench, sawed off on either side and pointed, and then there's a hole in the middle. So it's this big industrial, almost upholstery.
And then this is your thimble, you said?
And then this is my palm thimble. This was my teacher's. He's a lot taller than me, as you can see. But it goes like this.
Yeah.
When you're stitching this, it's clamped so tight that you just have to put it through with your palm, and there's no way.
And just that palm could do it. The normal hand without that.
And that's pretty much it. I use a pocket knife, and that's all my tools. I do have a vice clamp, but it's 2 2x4s with a wing nut screws.
So I guess looking back into the past, you really would need a blacksmith in the, say, 1800s or something.
Yep.
To be a broom maker.
Yeah. I mean,
assuming you didn't already have the tools or something like that.
He'd use me for I'd use him for making my stuff, and then he'd use me to make his brooms. So even when you see blacksmith shops now, I've worked with a few blacksmiths in the area, and I'll make brooms or little umpire brooms that they need for a fireplace set or something. Yeah. It's pretty cool, and then they can make my tools for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's see. Oh, I want to make sure I get this. Is where should people look at your stuff? Instagram? You like that? You like them to look at your Instagram the most?
I have Instagram. I have Facebook.
Or you like Facebook? So
I don't know, whichever I am.
And it's Aviary Broom Company
Aviary Broom
on
Company
Facebook and
Facebook and
Instagram
and Etsy.
And Etsy.
And